Creators of the Lost Art.
Welcome. We are here live at Namm 2025. It's day 2. It's Friday. We are at the Cloud Mics booth. Shout out Cloud. Thank you for hosting us. I'm joined by some really cool cats today. Let me start with Jorge Lanzas. If you guys don't know him, he is a pop, punk, heavy, metal, anything. This man produces, you name it, he kills it. He's worked with the Kooks. He's worked with
Robbie Krieger from The Doors.
This dude's nuts.
Great experience.
My boy Mixed by Matty. A lot of you guys know him on YouTube. Worked with Kelly Clarkson. He's got a ton of indie hits. He's like the #1 guy on Sound Better. If you go on Sound Better and you just look on the homepage, you'll find Matty. Real talk. And last but not least, Joey Sturgis.
Hey.
For those of you that don't know.
OG.
Joey.
Yes, sir.
Heavy metal god. Joey Sturgis Tones. Joey Sturgis plugins. Anything metal.
And education. More than anything.
Uses nothing but Joey stuff. And
That's right.
everybody else learned and figured it out. This guy's a genius. And we all have his stuff.
That's right.
I don't know anybody.
JST Clip on everything.
I don't know anybody that doesn't have your stuff.
And I want to say the JST Clip is something that definitely transcended genres. Like everybody uses it. Pop, hip hop, rap, rock, metal, everybody.
Yeah.
And the Widener.
The Widener is fucking huge.
Absolutely.
I'm like one of those weird guys. It's like, no, I still like version 1 on it. I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
right.
Oh, you're gonna be one of those guys, huh?
That's
So
right.
I have both versions, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? On this instrument, I'm gonna pick version 1, and then other times I'll either let the keyboard pick for me, and other times I'm like, no, I want the modern sound, and then I'm gonna drop down menu to that, etc. You
I'd
know
be
what I mean?
willing
It's
to bet,
just
too, like-
another tool in the palette.
Joey had the first Widener plugin. I mean, I put money, I don't know, but I feel like yours was one of the first ones. Now there's 1,000, but like.
That's mono-compatible.
Right,
That is
right.
that.
Exactly,
and that
yes.
was accessible too, because like some of these stereo plugins were very pricey in the
Yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
and that was always OG.
Stereo compatibility, and it sounds lush.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It sounds
That's
like
right.
There
it's
was a
clean. I
time
love it.
period where a lot of plugins didn't, like they would be VST2 and VST3 and maybe AU, but not AAX.
That's right.
Or they're AAX, but they're not VST2 or whatever it is. So we kind of fit into that perfect slot where we were doing every format, and we were one of the only people that had a plugin like that in every format.
That's right.
Like the Clipper was one of those examples. You know, I used to use a plugin called G-Clip.
G-Clip.
I used K-Clip by Audio Assault.
Yeah.
But like G-Clip didn't work on AAX, so, you know, there was a lot of Pro Tools users that are like, we want a clipper, we need a clipper, and it's like, I'll make that, you know.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Sick.
And I want to say that one of the biggest things that you ever did, me as a fan, right? Because before we ever were doing anything like we're doing, we were fans, right? And as a big fan of Joey Sturgis, like the ToneForge, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Like at that point, we had like 11 rack, a couple of terrible amplitude patches.
Yeah.
I do a lot of amplitude patches, so I know what I'm talking about. And ToneForge, it was just right there. You picked your guitar, you plug it into Pro Tools, and you had Misha Mansour's tone.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like that. I mean, Jaycen
Yeah.
Richardson. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, there. You know, I struggled with that as well at the time when I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I, you know, produce guitar tones in the box, have it be recallable perfectly every time, consistent tones, and then have it not sound like crap, basically.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
The real hard part.
And so I was gravitating towards Pod Farm for most of my career, and then when I finally was able to make my own DSP and generate my own plugins, I of course could do kind of whatever I wanted to. So that's how ToneForge came into the picture and how it evolved over time, is that I started to use my own plugins, of course, because I was building them and using them, and then figuring out, okay, now I need a tone that does this, and then you can make another model. And so you kind of, like, it's kind of a cheat code to be a producer
Right.
and make plugins, because then you can just like do.
I have this problem. How do I fix it?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
let's
Do
get some
whatever you
code.
need. Yeah. Yeah. So and I'm fortunate enough to be able to kind of do my own, you know, greedy projects where it's like, because I can sell it, I can make this.
Right.
know?
You can justify it
I
monetarily.
can justify making it. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
That's
pretty cool
awesome.
actually, but.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So for me, gain reduction was like my first introduction to your plugins,
Yeah.
and of course I was just coming up, and I was just like blown away by how drastic just a little bit.
Well,
do.
like, what plugins do you guys use? But just think about before gain reduction. That was 2014, I think. So before that, like, what would you put on a vocal for compression?
RVox.
Yeah, or
literally.
CLA.
Yeah,
Or CLA.
And then there's
76.
only so much you can push it.
Yeah.
True.
Right. And so I had played, at that time I'd played around with so many things. A lot of the UAD plugins. At the time I had a PCI card, so I had like the hardware
UAD2
processing going on.
The Shark.
Yep. And that was cool. And then, Waves had a couple things out there. And, I was taking like the Waves Blackface, the CLA, and like just maxing it out. All buttons in, input to the max, no attack, like quick release. And I'm still not getting.
Yeah. Where's that British
Right.
mode?
Yeah.
So,
That's a good point.
So like it was really cool to be able to think about, all right, since I can combine a bunch of things together and kind of still not really get where I want, or even with one thing I can't get where I want, let me figure out like why,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I started messing around with DSP at that time, and I think really what it is just kind of like being willing to push the boundaries of processing, like, because CLA teaches this a lot. I see a lot of his content. He'll say like, don't be afraid to boost something by 18 dB, like just turn the knob like all the way up. If it sounds good, it is good. And that was my approach to plugins. I think there was a lot of manufacturers at the time that were doing a lot of more traditional safe things.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to do this, it's
Just
too far,
bite the book.
or like, that's just going to make it clip. And for me, I was like, yeah, I want that. Like, I want clipping, I want aggression, I want distortion, I want saturation, I don't want any dynamics.
I want it to hit hard.
It's like so gain reduction starts where the
1176
stops.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to say it.
Basically, that's what I thought in my head, but I never really put it into paper. Once you said that, it all made sense.
Having the freedom, because in high school I learned I taught myself how to make my own website, and then I started to teach myself how to write video games, and then I fast forward to in your teenage years, you're probably in a band, you're trying to play shows, so some of that went away, and then when I got older, it came back to me.
Right.
But now it's not video games, it's audio.
Right.
So it's I'm producing, but I'm also writing some audio code, and when those things like absolutely smash together is when this was born.
Yeah. One whole power just going in one way. Just all momentum, all force. That's crazy.
But I feel really proud and humbled that a lot of people use JST products in their music, because I was so scared. Like when I would record bands, right, there'd always be one guy in the band that would be like looking over my shoulder or being like, "What are you doing there?" And I always felt,
That would have been me in the band.
I
yeah?
was so threatened by that, because I was like, wait a minute, you're the musician, I'm the producer, like, let's not cross streams here, like. But then like I figured out that there's nothing I could do about that, so I was like, maybe I can lean into it, and so I just feel really blessed that now I've been able to find a way to create something that is of value to musicians and be a part of all these productions in a passive way, right?
Yeah, like you're proud to make the product and we're proud to use it, man,
Yeah.
because it sounds fire.
Yeah.
I feel like none of us, at least in this panel, we would never use something that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
Maybe by mistake, but we will never come back to it. And man, if we keep coming back to JST, how old is the clip?
JST Clip was our, if I'm not mistaken, it was our second or third plugin.
2014.
11 years ago, so.
What
well,
was the first one?
The first one was Gain Reduction Deluxe,
right.
so I actually programmed that myself.
Yeah.
And then I worked with Boz Miller. He has Boz Digital.
Right.
Shout out Boz.
Yeah,
He's
Boz-
sick.
Boz-
Great
Yeah.
plugins
Boz
as
too.
well. And what had happened was I made that plugin, but it was only Windows 32-bit VST2, so Cubase only basically at that time. And it was like, how do I get this onto more machines? How do I get this onto Pro Tools? And so we went through, I contacted Boz, and he was gracious to help me pull that off. And we did all the work to get it to work on cross-platform, cross-DAW, everything. And then went on to do the next 4 plugins. We did Sub-Destroyer, JST Clip, Pixelator, and then SideWidener.
Pixelator is incredible.
Yeah. And then
Pixelated.
after that, we eventually hired our own full-time developer, and he's been with us since that time. But yeah, shout out to Boz for writing a lot of those original classics that still are bestsellers and used by everybody.
Cult classics.
Yeah.
Was that always the hardest thing, and more so maybe in the early days, I don't know now, was getting it cross-platform? Because I remember talking to plugin companies, they're like, oh, well, we can't get it to work on that and this. And
Yeah.
It just seems like, is it easier now, though? Is everyone doing it like
It's a little easier now with things like JUCE.
JUCE, yeah.
But in those days, there was a lot of hoops to jump through. Like, for example, if you wanted to compile AAX, you still needed to have some kind of connection with Pace, even if you weren't using iLok for protection, because they leaned into that technology to allow their AAX solution to work. And so, you got to email Ed, rest in peace. And you got to wait for him to email you back. And, so there was a lot of little, I'll call them like boilerplate things that you have to get rolling before you can like go in and start doing that stuff. But once you get it all set up, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, but it's
Setting up the infrastructure to
Exactly.
actually get it to work, yeah.
And nowadays, the new challenge is like, form factor. Like, okay, are you going to make this piece of software? Does it make sense for this piece of software to work on an iPhone?
Right.
That's the new thing.
Yeah.
Or like an iPad. And we've seen customers start asking like, hey, I want gain reduction on my iPad. And I'm like, what? Like,
What are you doing there?
I guess GarageBand.
yeah. There's apps now that can load these formats because Apple's really smart about that kind of stuff. So, and thankfully, JUCE makes that really easy. So it's kind of just a matter of like, should we do it or not?
So are you already like an iPad and iOS? Is that something maybe down the road that you're planning on doing?
Not yet, because if you think about it this way, if you buy a perpetual license of Gain Reduction Deluxe, you're probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $30, $40, $50, something like that. If you're in the iPad store and you're buying like a plugin,
Oh, yeah.
it's got to be
Uppriced, yeah.
$3, $4, $5. If it's $50, it's like what?
Yeah, no one's getting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some kind of way to where you buy a $50 license on the iPad store or something, but you're still getting the desktop version as well, and then it's also on your iPad, and maybe there's a way that works, but we haven't gone down that road yet. Right now, we're just really focused on power users and music creators on their desktop.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get right to the nitty gritty, guys.
Yes. Let's do it.
What's on your mix bus? You don't have to give me all of it. Just one thing that you want to share.
That always has to be there. In my case, that would be a VU meter calibrated to -14. First thing on my chain.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Then I will go to AMIC 200, and then I will do a little bit of L2. That's it.
Oh wow. What about you, Matty?
I have 8 JST clips on mine.
No, you don't.
No,
No, you don't.
But we should.
All I use really
Is that the JST bus?
Yes, that's right. It's like after my NLS bus.
Right.
JST Saturn.
One's
Yeah.
for the drums, one's for the vocals.
No, all I really use is Ozone now, and
Oh, wow.
and it does everything, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that plugin inside out now. I freaking love it. It can do so much. Keep adding new stuff to it. So
What about you, Jay?
Yeah, honestly, it's not going to be, you're going to be surprised. So, and tell me how long I can go, because I can keep it short or I can keep it long.
Go for it.
Okay,
Go
so
for
Educate us.
it. Please.
Okay, so I do a submix, which is basically all of my instrumental tracks, plus I have a carve.
Oh, we're going deep. We're going template.
You want me to
deep.
go super
Let's
deep?
go.
Yeah, no,
Let's go.
let's
Let's
talk
go.
about
Let's
it.
go. Let's go. That's what I want. That's what I
Okay.
want.
We're talking about it.
Okay, cool. So I have a track called Carve. It's a bus. And all the guitars, the bass, anything that makes sort of like sustained sounds, the things that are not drums and also not vocals, but things that are sustained sounds, go into this Carve bus. And I put an instance of Soothe 2 on there.
Okay.
And then I've got it on hard mode, super sensitive, super selective, and sidechained. Do the kick, snare, toms, and anything else you want to have impact. So that could be, snare bombs. That could be like explosions, crashes, whatever makes sense for your production to really pop out through the mix. That goes into the sidechain of the Soothe 2. And basically what that's doing is now Soothe 2 is carving out in your sustained instruments, it's carving out a little blip every time those things hit.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I like
Okay.
that.
Now that goes to the submix, and then the drums go to the submix as well. And that's still use to this day. I love it. The SSL G Comp,
Oh, okay.
Nice.
the bus compressor. That bus compressor rules.
Waves or who?
It's Waves.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Waves G Comp.
More
The
bass.
OG.
It's
The OG,
goated.
huh?
It is absolutely goated.
Can you give us a couple settings?
Oh yeah. Just make sure
You do the cross eye or what?
No, my threshold is like, I think I leave the threshold default, and then what I do is I move the gain into that plugin. I change the gain until
Got
I
it.
see the needles.
So
at
that is
4.
your gain structure, like what I would use the
Yeah.
VU meter for. You're using your G comp.
Yeah, and I make sure I'm not hitting the needle past 4, and then I'm attack 30 milliseconds, release as fast as possible.
Okay.
And then I think the makeup gain is default as well.
So yeah, you are doing cross-eyed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Tight.
So that's that. Submix goes into the master bus, and then usually I'll decide, depending on what I'm trying to do, like, do I want the vocals to also be compressed by the submix, or do I want the vocals to bypass that and go straight into the master? I make that decision based on what I hear and what I like. And then on my master bus, it's linear MB by Waves.
Just for like listening, or you're using it.
I'm using linear MB because it's a linear linear phase multiband compressor. I'm using that to control like any out of control low end, like
Okay.
maybe there's a sub drop somewhere in the song, and so it kind of helps duck that and stuff like that. And then that goes right into, actually, you guys are gonna hate me for this, and I'm gonna get crucified, but I use the one knob louder,
Wow.
That's sick.
1 or 0.5.
You blew my head like that, man. I can't believe it, man.
And then that goes into JST Maximizer, which is my finalizer plugin that it's got all the knobs the way I want them, and it's basically kind of like Ozone, but it's not as powerful, but you know, that's it.
Does what you
That's
wanted
sick.
to do. That's
That was
sick.
great.
Sorry for the long answer, but
that was
That's
great.
why
And-
we're here.
and I wanna say-
Literally.
Oh,
Me,
Nico, you're
I'm-
not getting out of this either. We need to know
Oh,
yours.
yo, so I said it before, I'll say it again. God Particles.
I
man.
got God Particle too. I
God
got-
Particle.
Okay.
And then I mean Orion's on my drum bus. I'm learning the ins and outs of it. I'm trying to, do the old I'm too cool to read the manual
right.
method.
I just
but,
want to push knobs and
oh, that sounds good.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Use
Yeah.
your ears, but man,
it's too much. It's too much.
I can't go
Yeah.
without saying it, man. It's like obviously a lot of people that know, but for everyone that doesn't know, y'all need to try that.
Yeah, especially if you're not really mixing every single day of your life, because there's something about the tone in your ears that you don't get used to how a great mix sounds like, and basically Jaycen is helping you in that way because you're not thinking about that anymore.
Yeah.
He's giving you a little meter here and there that you're like, okay, maybe I'm wrong here, and then you go and compensate.
And I was actually pushing his meters a little bit differently, thinking that I was like too cool for school.
Right.
And the client was like, can you, there's something in the, can you? And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was just trying to be smart about it.
Nice.
I think, yeah, the God Particle is great. I use it all the time, and then I think it's such a great plugin, like you're saying, for anyone just starting out even. Like, it shows you where to go. At least gives you some sort of direction. You know what I mean? I think it's a winner.
It is, and Orion has similar qualities. It can get you a little bit more trouble because there's saturation, this, that, and the other. But
Yeah, especially that first module with
Yeah.
the bunch of NLSs.
Yeah.
That one, if you turn that off, I think it's like very a normal plugin to use pretty
Yes.
much.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to go back with you, Jay, man. Is it okay if I call you Jay?
Sure.
Because JST, right? Anyway, but the thing is, like, because I'm very into like the metal and like heavy genres, and I've noticed like this in the past year, maybe past 6 months, I've noticed like people like Zach Cervini and they're really pushing that same thing that you're doing with the Soothe and like throwing that sidechain. How aggressively are you doing it? Because when I hear Zach, for example, every snare drum, every kick drum, it's like everybody just goes away. It's like worse, not worse, but better than even an EDM song. It's like every snare, everybody goes away.
Yeah.
Every kick, everybody goes away. Are you going that hard at it? And maybe is that why I'm not getting your results? Maybe I'm not going hard enough. Like, what is the deal with that, man?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about length because, really what we're trying to do, if you think about how the audio physics work with the speaker, okay, the speaker has to push air. And when it's in that moment, when that snare is snapping, it's pushing the air, and you kind of want, the first thing you want to do is you want to get everything moving in the right direction. So that's phase, right?
Yes.
So if you have You know, if your snare, whenever it hits, it's not all pistons firing out, or you could do it the other way around.
But not as fun.
It's got to be right. And then from there, okay, now there's a lot of, think about like noise, right? Like, or like a photo, the clarity of a photo. If I look at a photo and it's a little fuzzy, it's like, I really want to see that foreground element, I want to see it to be sharp. So in order to make that same thing happen in the audio world, we need to remove things away from the speaker. We need to make the speaker not do as much as it has to do. We want it to push the air.
Right.
So by cutting out some of that stuff, you're allowing the speaker to focus on that snare sound, because you leave the snare as it is, but you're cutting out all the other things for that brief little moment. And that gives the speaker a little bit of a chance to optimize itself for that snare hit.
Right.
And
like,
so,
sorry to cut you off, but just to reiterate what he's saying, if the let's say like the woofer is pushed out because it's literally pushing air, it's in the middle of like a big old kick drum and it's all the way pushed out, and you're trying to put a snare and a hi-hat and a guitar and 1,000 things, it's not going to have this, it's not going to be able to push that much air. It's already
Full
pushed all the
inclusion,
way out.
right.
So that's the theory. The entire theory behind the technique is to give the speaker the ability to represent that sound more clearly, without having to share it with all the other. You're not sharing space.
Now, how aggressive are you being? How many dBs of reduction are you
Right.
looking at?
So here's the trick. If you set it up how I explained it earlier, there's a knob inside of Sooth 2 called Trem, and you can move that up and down. So if you leave it on 0, you're going to experience pretty much the maximum effect, especially if you have the, what is the depth knob? You
All
have the
the way,
depth,
yeah.
depth
Hard.
knob cranked, right? Now that's your first control. Like you can not crank it, you can leave it on 3, put it on 0. Like that kind of gives you a real simple way to be like, okay, how much of this do I want? Now let's say you dial that in and you kind of like where it is, but you wish that all the stuff that went away you wish that it could come back a little bit. You use the trim knob to do that. And then you'll basically be balancing how much is scooped and how much is, you can basically boost all of it back up again.
Yeah.
Let's say you boost it all by 1.5 dB. Okay, now it's 1.5 dB louder, but that scoop is still the same amount.
Right.
So it's a really cool way to balance between the depth knob and the trim knob. That's basically once you set it all up, those are the only two things you need to move up and down.
And just adjust the taste.
Yeah,
Salt
adjust
and
the
pepper.
taste. 100% adjust the taste. And here's how you get that. You check on your iPhone, you check on your MacBook, you check on your headphones, your earbuds, all your favorite consumer listening devices. Obviously, you can listen to this on your monitors. That's what you're already working on. But listen to it on those other devices because it will make a big impact.
It will be revealing, yeah.
Yeah, super revealing.
Yeah, I have a mix right now going out that I botched the kick and the snare because I mixed it in like 35 minutes. I didn't check on anything, and now it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
Oh, those are the worst because
Yes.
you'll wake up 10 years later still thinking about that mix. Yeah.
Knowing that I could have done better.
yeah.
Favorite parallel chains?
Ooh.
Ooh, okay. Should I start?
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite parallel chain is what I'm doing to my bass right now. And I use it on every bass, 808, Juno, live bass, whatever it is. If it goes in my session, it goes there first, right? I'm using L1 just to control dynamics, of course, to the TG bridge, like that. It's a Waves plugin. It's like a TG console. And it's got EQ, compression, all kinds of stuff. And I'm destroying that thing, destroying it. And then I put another L1 after that.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then I blend it in maybe like minus 20, minus 15 under my bass. It's bottom end, it's definition, it's credibility, it's the best version of the bass.
Damn, son.
Mine right now is back to our heritage, probably is Orion, only because, this is
Parallel.
Well, so
Yeah.
this is what Orion is those 4 faders on the right are all parallel, mixed parallel faders.
Got it.
You have, and they're all just different versions of different things, but you have sub, you have extra low end, you have parallel compression, which is just basically like 1176 type parallel. And then the last one, which was my favorite, adds the attack. It's basically a filter, super filter, just the type of
The ticky on the kick.
ticky, right? Super compression, and that's how a lot of times I'll use Orion without any of the front end stuff. You take all that off and just use those faders.
Got it.
And if you need more kick, boom, slap that on there. more low end, more tick, whatever you want.
Matty comes from the original
Like a console, yeah.
school of Jay.
Right, the original School J, yeah. So that is right now my favorite parallel channel. I would
It
say.
sounds great.
And
I've
a lot
tried
of
it,
times I'll just put it on the kick or just put it on the snare, not just the whole bus. Just using it on different instruments, bass, whatever.
I feel like I need to like get new stuff because I do this so many times and I always got to include mine. So little by little, you got to either watch all of them, but my whole template's out there. But so this one is, I'm going to give you guys a free one. And this is my bass. I have 4 bass parallels, but this is one of my bass parallels. It's the BOD overdrive pedal, and it's free. It's it's literally, if any guitar bass players know the actual pedal, it's just an emulation of that, super free, and it sounds really good. It sounds really good for paralleling.
And that's it?
Anything. Well, that's one of my 4
Okay.
parallels.
What else
but
are you
I'm
doing?
gonna
You're not
give
doing anything after or before that? In that same, let's say in that return, are you putting anything?
No, nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. I dialed in. I'll either drive it more or less, or I'll either, there's I'll dial it in for that song, and then but it's just for the iPhone.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's I don't want to hear it unless taste wise you need more top tone or whatever. I don't want to hear it. But on certain devices, and by now I kind of know, I don't necessarily have to check, but I kind of know how much I need to put in, and then I'm always like, and then I'll be surprised by someone's like, yeah, it sounds really good on the phone too.
It does.
I'm blessed that I use great speakers that, shout out Dutch and Dutch, and I use amazing speakers that I don't need to, like I learned where everything sits in a way that, I know how it translates, but the point is, it's amazing. And it's just, because the whole iPhone thing, the whole add a little extra something.
You're always
you can't
shooting in the
hear,
dark.
right? But it's still a thing. I think it's very much still a thing. What about you, Joey? What's your favorite parallel stuff?
Well, yeah, before I get into that, I do want to say I've used a Tube Screamer in Pod Farm Elements. It's just, all they did is they took, you can get all the overdrive pedals or all the, that plugin was all over my mix all the time.
The Tube Screamer?
Yeah, I used to love it.
That nice mid-range,
I would
right?
put it in all kinds of stuff. But so for the parallel thing, I actually don't really do a lot of parallel processing. I'm literally going through a mix in my head right now, one that I just printed, and I'm like, there's no parallel anything in here. But I will say there's one thing that's kind of parallel. I will always take the bass, because I do a lot of like rock and metal. So we're talking about, right, this band has 3 guitar players, they have a bass player, drums, fast drums, and like screaming vocals. The bass in this song is going to be a real bass, like, they're tuned they're tuned in double drop C sharp 0, so very, very, very low. And the bass is barely there, so what we're doing is we're filling in some of the low end gap with Sub Destroyer, which is basically generating a triangle wave.
Wow.
And then we're doing a low pass filter on that. So you get all that low end from the sub that you can trust that that's going to be there from Sub Destroyer or whatever wave generator plugin you want to use.
You're synthesizing basically your bottom end.
Yep, program all the MIDI.
And it does make sense, especially if you're using like a real bass. Like you don't have any sub bass in a real bass, really.
Yeah.
And you want it in that case.
It can be pretty rough, especially if you really tracked it and if you don't take the time to basically punch in every note, almost like.
And track to an Ampeg B15.
Yeah, it's just going to be a mess. So and
stack 3 of them.
To get the low end to behave like you would want to hear it on such a polished type of production, you really have to fabricate it. And that's what we do. So it's alongside the normal bass. I'm not actually carving. I've taught this before to take all the low end out of the real bass and just use the low end from the sub bass. That's not what we're doing on this mix. We're using the low end from the real bass. We're using the low end from the sub as well, and they're both together. I did have to make sure that they were in phase. Per
Are you using like auto align or something for that?
No,
manually.
Just kind of manually going through and treating it properly. So, yeah. But I do like parallel compression. I like parallels processing, but I just don't do a lot of it. So I don't know.
You're very aggressive on your tracks, right? Like I've seen like people like Buster and Buster Odoholm and all these metal guys are incredible. I mean, even if you like mixing and let's say you don't do metal, some of these guys are putting some of the techniques that you would never even think about, just because they're dealing with problems that usually in hip hop and rap and pop we don't deal with.
Yeah.
So they are really, really creative. And you see people like Buster, he's just like destroying everything. You think, there's no way on earth that's gonna sound good. And then you hear it on the mix, and it sounds incredible. You're like, I need to learn. Just a quick question, just because I have you here, man, and I'm a fan. Are we ever gonna see JST drums?
So there was a company.
As a library.
Okay, so I used to have Joey Sturgis drums like a long time ago.
Yes.
And I made a couple cymbal packs. I made a couple of drum sample libraries as well. And then I got in with Joel Wanasek and Joe Wolitz, and we started Drumforge. So I'm a co-founder there. And it kind of got to this point where I was like, I think that these guys have an interesting approach to drums that's a little different than me, and so we should explore that a little bit. And so we have over the years, and I've released some drum shots packs and things like that. Right now, I can say that we've been working with a really prominent producer, and his drum pack is going to come out soon, and you're all going to know the name, and you're all going to want to have the pack.
And we will have it.
Actually, it's a drum sampler, not just a pack, but
like a contact instrument?
No, beyond that.
On it, wow.
Mixing capabilities, groove player, all these things.
Damn.
But I do have in my vault a very elaborate drum sample library that I've recorded, and I might release it at some point.
Nice.
If you don't, at least send it to us, maybe on an email, right? Friendly email to the buddies.
It's just you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of files, and it's just you have to really make a big bet on it.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that if I am going to do that it's going to matter, So
Nice.
that's it.
That you're going to keep impacting the music production positively, let's say.
Yes. Yeah. Always my goal is to help people make great music. I've aligned myself that way with the universe. I've just fallen to it. I'm like, that's what I'm here for. So I'm just going to keep doing
Love
that.
it, man.
Yeah.
Love it.
Favorite pedals? Favorite guitar pedal or favorite pedals? One of them? All of
I
them?
got to look up the name. I know what it is. I just have to look up the name.
I have a bunch, man, and I have for different kind of reasons, but one of my favorites have to be the Earthquaker devices, I want to say.
I love Earthquaker.
Data Corruptor. I don't know if you've ever used that.
I haven't used that one.
That's to make a guitar sound like not a guitar.
Is that like a Bit Crusher?
It's like a Bit Crusher that's going to be like...
Like
So
your internet modem?
Dude, it's like so random. It's like the most random pedal you can have,
That's
and whatever
sick.
you play is going to influence it, so it's
That's
going to be
so
super
sick.
different. And sort of like in the same vein, the POG. Who doesn't like a good POG? Electro harmonics. It's like a bunch of harmonies.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Dude, it's so much
incredible.
fun. That pedal's a lot of fun. I actually played with it at Namm at their booth a couple years ago. It was a lot of fun. I was tripping and I didn't eat anything, I promise. I'll go ahead and go because you got me on a run because I love Earthquaker devices. Their Avalanche run is really good.
I gotta check those out.
The it's like black and yellow. I forget the name of it.
They
like
have
a
the crank speaker, reverb. They changed the colors, but they have this one with the wizard.
And then they have a silver one too. That's a stereo. It's a stereo.
Yeah, colors with Earthquakers, it's complicated because every seller has a different color for the same pedal, like a limited edition.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're super cool to collect and stuff, but that's another talk.
And then of course the Big Sky.
Oh yeah.
Big Sky's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Big Sky is awesome.
I wish I would have said that.
Really quick. I'm
go
gonna stop before we. Oh, we're talking about pedals. Like before we move off of pedals, I'm gonna mention there's a guy named Mixer Michael. I forget his actual last name. He's a film score mixer, really cool guy. He made an impulse response of the Big Sky. You can load it into Waves IR loader.
Nice.
Wow.
It's really cool, and he has 50 other pedals. So they work in either.
IR, the
What's
Waves
the other
plugin,
one?
then there's the Mac DSP Revolver. Would that work in there?
I'm not sure
that plays
if it's
IRs
compatible.
as well, yeah.
It may.
Reverberate too. I use that one.
Oh, Reverberate, yeah.
And what's the really expensive one?
Altiverb.
Altiverb.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
he has Altiverb, an Altiverb pack and a Waves IR pack. So I'm not exactly sure if it's compatible with the other two
Got
IR
it,
loaders,
got
but
it.
I know for sure those two. And it's 50 pedals and a bunch of different, shots, and it's sick. I'm telling you, there's 50 pedals. Like, dude,
Just on that same note, there's a whole platform called ToneX. That's basically their whole business. They model pedals, amps, cabinets.
are they
and
fire though? Because these are actual IR
These are actually IRs.
Oh,
like
oh, yeah?
if the
Sick.
person that you got that made your IR, because it's like a user-friendly environment, so you can make your
Oh,
own
okay,
IRs at home. So
gotcha.
if the person that you know did a great job, they did a great job,
Well,
it is gonna be great.
These
But
were
there's some
made by a
whack
guy
stuff.
that actually works in the,
Yeah.
you know, he's a film mixer. He mixes the stuff you watch on TV.
Yeah.
He's legit. So look him up, Mixer Michael, I believe his name. I'm actually gonna look him up while you go.
Okay.
I wanna
So mine is a pedal that's it's pretty brand new. Like I think it came out like maybe a month or two ago. But it's made by this company called Talon Electric.
Talon.
So they're kind of new on the scene. They're not here at Namm. I think they'd like to be, and maybe they can get there soon. But there's this pedal called the Noise. Okay,
Okay.
the
Looks
Noise.
pretty
I don't
cool.
know if you can.
We
see
have to
this.
get him to Namm, man. You should have to share that information
So-
with us so we can spread the word.
Yes, 100%. And what's cool about it, there's a couple of knobs on there, but the main focus is these two buttons on the bottom. And what happens is they're hold buttons. So when you're playing guitar and you hold your foot down on one of those buttons, it basically kind of does the thing you were talking
Like-
about.
uh-huh,
It
like a
just
reverb hold.
start to make a bunch of crazy noises.
Oh, cool.
It almost sounds like the guitar is screeching and screaming and yelling and
Nice.
stuff. And there's two different octaves of it. So you press one, you have one octave. You press the other one, you have the other octave. You can also press them at the same time.
Nice.
So it gets crazy. And I love pedals that give you the ability to make a new noise with your instrument or to do something that's you can't do with your hands or whatever. I think that is actually a really powerful use case for guitar pedals. Yeah.
And I'm gonna add on to that. My next favorite pedal is it's definitely not utilitarian for me. I just think it's freaking cool as heck. The plasma pedal.
Oh wow,
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen those.
That's
The
goated.
plasma pedal's cool, and our buddy Michele Canova, he had a Jack White edition plasma pedal, which does some even extra stuff. But yeah,
More messed up.
it's cool, and this company's really cool. For a while, I think while they were still developing it, it hadn't come out yet. They would let you upload like a 30-second clip on their website, and
That's
it would
right.
run it through.
And you could watch it on the video, I think.
Yeah,
too.
something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And it would
The signature?
It'll print it out. So I actually have a producer friend of mine, shout out Vice Cooler. He did some pretty cool productions
With it.
With it.
Nice.
And oh man, Vice is a genius, but they're geniuses too.
Did they have a rack unit too? Or
Yeah,
is
they
that a
do have
different-
one
is that a
now.
different
Yeah,
company? Okay.
they have
nuts.
one now.
Okay.
Matty, what is your favorite pedal?
Dude, I suck at this because I do so much like pop and R&B stuff that like I don't use automated pedals. So Tube Screamer always, but you know what? I'll get a sentimental is like my favorite pedal, and it's stupid, but it's a Boss digital delay. And
Wow.
only reason
Yes.
why is when I was 13 years old, me and my boy Ryan McKenna went to Manny's Music in New York City, which is no longer there, and we bought our first fucking delay plugin. And all we had was like a 2-track tape machine, and when we got that thing home, it changed our life, and it made me want to become an engineer and everything. I was like, dude, you hear this thing repeating?
I
Like,
remember
we,
that
we were
moment.
blown away.
That's
Then
great.
we lost it. We ran out of the battery, and we decided we'd plug it in of some 9-volt. It blew the whole thing up.
Oh no.
But anyway,
Fun times.
that was that got me into engineering. Why I wanted to do this stuff was the Boss.
So it's a
delay.
pivotal pedal. It's
Yeah,
not your
dude.
favorite pedal. It's a pivotal
Yeah,
pedal, a
and I
career
love
maker.
delays, so.
For a pretty good career. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
ask me,
No,
Matty
no,
over
no,
here.
no, no.
And I will give it to them. They had it was like, I don't know how big it was. Like, it was probably as big as this backdrop pedals out at Namm the other year. Literally, it was like triple life-size pedals.
Yeah. Wow.
As a display.
With
I didn't
Boss?
even
It was
see
yeah,
that.
Boss. It was
Yeah.
it was freaking awesome.
We missed
Um,
some stuff.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
No, good times. I'm glad everyone's having fun. Everyone's having a good Namm. You know, the music industry looks healthy.
Yes.
It does. It does.
So-
I feel it's back. I
I'm
wanna say it's
definitely
back.
glad to say that.
Yeah, the energy is here, you know. I had heard some rumors that Namm was going to feel smaller this year. To me, it feels just as big as the last year and just as big as the best years. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Absolutely. The impact is definitely there.
We all know we're gonna go home with our little dose of Namm tracks this year for a
Namm
fact, because
tracks.
there's so
Let's-
many people out here.
Knock on wood, I'll get it this
Yeah,
year.
we're good on
I'm
that.
knocking
So-
on this wood
Knock
right
on
here.
Dutch
Yeah,
and Dutch wood.
please.
I was like the first person in
Reach
America
over.
who got COVID after Namm that first time, like right when it all
Oh my
happened.
gosh.
Definitely got COVID in Namm.
Yeah. Everybody, man, everybody. I got COVID in Namm last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Let's get out of here. Hey, can I ask one question for Joey?
Yeah, let's go.
There's, obviously the new, at least to me, on the outside looking in, AI is the big catchword that's going to be coming to plugins.
Sure.
I know Spike had his plugin that came out, or he announced it, and there's a lot of backlash with it.
Right.
And shout out to Spike. I think he lost his house in the fire, so
Yeah.
sending love to
Shout out
him.
to Spike Stent.
But what's your take on it? Like, are you exploring that? Like, how do you think it can be helpful to the music industry and so forth? Like,
Sure.
just your ideas on it.
So I'll start with how I feel about AI in general. You know, it really is just kind of right now an assistant technology. I think that it can assist people in a lot of different industries, especially with like things where there's editing and post-production and all kinds of this. I really don't like AI for generative technologies or processes. Like, I don't think you should think about AI as like, okay, create this video for me or make this sound or
Melody generators, MIDI generators.
No, I don't like it for that. I think it's neat for like, I don't know, hey, I'm writing these 2 lyric lines and I need this word to rhyme with this, and like give me some ideas. Like, that's cool. It's
Brainstorming.
Yeah, brainstorming. Creative partners, think of it that way. The second thing I'll say about it is AI is going to be, right now, it's being used in industries that have the most need or volume. So, Hollywood, everyone's trying to make a movie, everyone's trying to make videos. I mean, everyone that has a phone is basically a video creator. So AI is going to be mostly tuned, tweaked, and improved and rapidly advancing for that specific part of our life and social needs and all these kinds of things. I think that the audio industry is probably going to be the last to have this innovation and the slowest.
In like a meaningful way, yeah.
Because
we're so small too.
We're so small, right? It's just so many. There's not so many people making albums. Like, it's like a few million people doing it versus like how many millions, hundreds of millions of people are making videos, or even billions.
Yes.
Billions. So I think that AI will not be a big problem for a while, but eventually it will. I do see it being an assistant, a creative assistant in your DAW, So I look at it that way. I wouldn't be too scared of it, It's,
Me neither.
It's
No,
definitely
I'm
not going to replace us. It's not going to be able to mix your songs automatically, So don't worry about any of that stuff.
That's right. You're good. Keep making music, folks.
Yes.
Keep making music. So without further ado, I want to give a big thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me on the Faders of the Lost Art.
Thank you, Nico.
We're here live at Namm 2025 at the Cloud Mike's booth. We appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Stay tuned.
Don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. And see you next time on Faders of the Lost Art.